Friends, welcome. So good to have you in the space. Come on in, come on in. So good to have you. Welcome. Really excited to have an extraordinarily powerful conversation today with a just spectacular panel of thought leaders in this space. So we want to encourage you to come on in. Hey, go ahead and email or text someone, tell them to join. We're about to go ahead and jump right into this incredible conversation. So people are still joining. Come on in, come on in. Welcome. So delighted to have you in the space. Come on in, y'all. Come on in. We're going to be getting started in just 30 seconds here. My name is Jamal Nelson, and I'm the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer here at Audubon. So thrilled to be a small part of this conversation. We're going to be starting soon. Welcome. Come on in. Come on in. Well, I think, are we ready to go ahead and get started? Let's jump in. Friends, Jamal Nelson, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. We want you to know that we have ASL transcription services available. So please make sure that you are taking advantage of those services. If you're just joining us, welcome. We're about to get started. Jamal Nelson, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. We have this extraordinary panel and powerful conversation planned for you today. Hey, friends, take 30 seconds and tell us where you're joining from. Do that right in the chat. Take 30 seconds and tell us where you're joining from. Where are you joining from? Take 30 seconds and tell us in the chat where you're joining from. You all, the National Audubon Society is extraordinarily honored and excited to be a small part of this conversation. We're grappling as an organization with deep and meaningful questions around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We've got a three-part plan to drive this work forward really humbly. That plan includes one, really defining what it means to be an anti-racist organization. Two, rolling out comprehensive set of trainings to deepen and grow our capacity as individuals around cultural competency. And three, grappling with what does it mean for us as an organization to do our work through a diversity, equity, inclusion lens. You all, to that end, Birdability and the conversations that we're going to be having today are critical. And so I'm super excited to turn the conversation over now to Freya, my colleague and friend. Freya, how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you, Jamal?
I'm doing well. Forgive me, I should have used named my pronouns. Jamal Nelson, I use he, him, his, Shenandoah land right now.
Thanks so much, Jamal. Really appreciate you being here. And a huge thanks to National Audubon. There are so many folks at National Audubon who help us out at Birdability and have done so for a really long time. It was through National Audubon that we had Birdability last year, Birdability Week last year, which is what pushed us to become a nonprofit in January. So big thank you to National Audubon. My name is Freya McGregor. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the Birdability Coordinator and occupational therapist, and I'm really excited about this conversation tonight. I know I'm going to learn a lot from these awesome people, and I hope you will too. I would like to acknowledge that a lot of the work that Birdability does happens on Muskogee Creek land. Many people from the Muskogee Nation were forcibly removed by the US government to what was then Indian Territory, but there are still Muskogee people living in what we now call Alabama today. And I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects and extend gratitude for their past and continuing stewardship of the land that I live, work, and go birding on. As Jamal mentioned, we have closed captions, so please use them if you need to. And we're really glad to have an American Sign Language interpreter here as well. So these are additional program expenses. So providing honorariums, and all the panelists tonight will be receiving an honorarium in gratitude for their expertise and their time. This is just something that we've learned is really important if you're going to prioritize inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And so we look forward to hearing some of the recommendations that the panelists have for more things that organizations can do in that space. We're going to hear from a really awesome group of panelists tonight, really diverse group of people, but I do want to acknowledge that we're not making any claim that that every single kind of birder is being represented on this panel. Definitely that's not the case, and we invite you to consider whose voices are not being heard and what we can do as a birding community and within our own communities to make sure that everybody is being included in all of these conversations. I also should mention that IDEA, if you're not familiar, a good idea for birding, IDEA stands for inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And we think that's a good idea for birding. The access is important for us at Birdability. If you're new to Birdability, welcome. We're a brand new nonprofit and we're all about sharing the joys of birding with people who have disabilities and other health concerns. But we wouldn't be doing our job if we only focused on white, straight, cisgender birders with disabilities. And so we're really looking forward to hearing from some BIPOC birders and LGBTQIA+ birders tonight, as well as other birders with disabilities, about things we can do to be more welcoming and inclusive. I encourage you to share your ideas in the chat and any resources, any other organizations and efforts you know of in the chat so we can all learn, and to check out the Welcoming and Inclusive Birders hashtag on social media today. I've learned quite a lot from the folks who've posted with that hashtag today, so I thank you for that as well. Finally, the last thing I want to mention is that safety is really important to us, and that includes safety in virtual settings. And so if anyone makes any comments in the chat that are racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, ableist, you're going to get one opportunity to clarify your intent or apologize, and then you'll be removed from the Zoom webinar if you don't do that. It's really awkward for me to have to say this. It's going to be really awkward if I have to actually kick someone out of this webinar, but the discomfort that I feel doing that is much, much less than any harm that may be caused by actions like that. And so we want folks to be thinking about that if they're doing in-person events. So it's important that we do that in virtual events as well. Okay, that's enough from me. Panelists, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Please, I'm going to call on you one by one just to introduce yourself by name. Please share your pronouns if you feel comfortable doing so, where you are, and the name of any organization or group or initiative that you're attached to that is working on inclusion, diversity, equity, or access in birding. We'll start with Elise.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elise. I use she or they pronouns, coming to you from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I organize a relatively new group called Philly Queer Birders.
Thanks so much, Elise. Jerry.
Hi, my name is Jerry. I am a person who is totally blind from birth, located in Massachusetts. My pronouns are he, him. And I've been an avid birder for, I guess, about 50 years, 45 years at least. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Oh, and I should also say, folks, as you're introducing yourself, please share with us, if it's helpful for you, please share with us any accommodation requests or needs you have to help you participate in this event tonight. If you don't think that would be helpful, don't feel obliged to share it. But if it would, please let us know.
I would like to add something then, since I was the last one that spoke and I forgot to add it when I spoke. A couple of things. I can't really pay attention to the chat while I'm listening to people talk, so I'm not likely to be aware of something that is chatted until later, but I will read them all later. And also, if you're going to show something on the screen, be sure and verbalize it so I'm aware of what other people are seeing. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Jerry. I'll make sure that we verbalize any otherwise visual information. Leticia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leticia Soares. I'm currently a postdoctoral associate at the Advanced Facility for Avian Research at Western University in London, Ontario, Canada. However, I'm speaking from Brazil. I'm speaking on the land of the Pataxó indigenous people. in the state of Bahia. I'm in a town named Santa Cruz Cabralha, and I am disabled. I have several different disabilities, but perhaps the most important one that I would like to talk about today is long COVID. Yes, pass along. And my pronouns are she, her. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Leticia, is that right?
Yes,
Leticia. I'm really sorry.
yes.
I'm sorry to get your name
It's
wrong.
like the CH sound. Yes, I'm Brazilian, so it pronounces a little different.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I hate it when people get my name wrong over and over when I've told them the right way. So thank you for correcting me on that. Monica.
Hi, I'm Monica Bryan. I use she, her, hers. I am in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, St. Paul, Minneapolis, the land of Dakota Anishinaabe. We're really lucky to partner with some of our groups here, the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux and the Lower Phelan Creek project here in the Twin Cities. I am a part of Kestrels, which is an organization that's sort of new, that's for women and gender non-conforming folks who are interested in birding, BIPOC outdoors. So they do everything. And that's one of the organizations that we partner with, which is I'm part of the Urban Bird Collective. I was the founder of the Urban Bird Collective. And we partner with especially BIPOC outdoors to get people out into nature. And I think that's it. And I have no needs. Well, no, I have needs, sorry. But
Thanks, Monica. Dexter.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dexter Patterson. I use he and him, his pronouns. I'm coming from you live from Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. So I'm super excited to be with you all today.
Thanks, Dexter. Carrie.
Oh, and I completely forgot to let you know what organization I represent. I am the co-founder of the BIPOC Birding Club of Wisconsin. You can check us out at bipocbirdingclub.org. Shout out to my co-founder and mentor, Jeff Galligan, Dr. Jeff Galligan. He's probably in the chat, but he's the GOAT.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dexter. Sorry, Carrie.
Hi, I'm Carrie Sasportis. I'm autistic. I use identity first language. And I'm also LGBTQ. I live in Arlington, Massachusetts, which is ancestral land that belongs to the Massachusetts people. And I just want to acknowledge and pay respect to the Massachusetts tribe. They've lived here for millennia. And prior to European colonizers who violated their sovereignty and territory, in whom the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has taken their name. One of the things I should let folks know, I'm relying on the closed captions, which is why I'm looking down a lot. I have an auditory processing disorder associated with the autism, which means that I process verbal information very slowly. And that's why I speak a little more slowly too. So I use the captions to keep up. But I did ask Freya to call on me during the panel discussion because it can be difficult for me to know when to jump in or to follow the flow of a conversation. So that's one accommodation that I asked for.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie, for sharing. Carla.
Hi, my name is Carla Naboa. I use they, she pronouns. I do prefer they, but if you use she, that's okay. I am non-binary. I am a first-generation Ecuadorian American, and I have an autoimmune disorder that flares up and really causes me a lot of physical pain, as well as pretty severe anxiety and depression, which manifests itself physically. So that does actually prevent me from doing a lot of stuff. I am the new president of Feminist Bird Club, and I also help run the Philly chapter here, where I am calling in from the ancestral Lenape lands, otherwise known as Philadelphia.
Thanks so much, Carla, and congratulations. Karina.
Hello, everyone. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you for having me and inviting me, Freya. My name is Karina Newsom. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm calling in from Atlanta, Georgia, the ancestral land of the Muskogee people. And so I would love to lift up an organization called the Freedom Birders, which I am a proud and avid supporter of, and I'm excited for their work. And I'm also a birdability captain in Georgia, and I'm very grateful to be able to be involved with this organization in that way. Thank you.
Thanks, Karina. And I believe that Freedom Birders are part of Amplify the Future. Also part of Amplify the Future is the Black and Latinx Scholarship Fund. So I've just got the link for them in the chat in case you'd like to check them out and support them. I know they definitely appreciate donations. Megha Deepa. Sorry, Megha Deepa, can't hear you. Sorry, everyone, we're just having some technical issues. All right, Megha Deepa is going to try and.
Hi,
oh,
I got it.
Perfect.
Thanks. It's because you had muted me. So when you tried to unmute me, it was okay. But anyway, hi, my name is Megha Deepa. I am calling in from the Connecticut River Valley in Western Massachusetts on the unceded territories of the Norwood people who were displaced. I am queer, I use they, them pronouns. I have been involved with the anti-racist collective of avid birders. And I know it can be hard to tell from my accent, but I grew up in India and I am an immigrant, and that's an important part of my identity. I am really glad to be here. I'm also disabled, and I think it's, there's nothing in particular that I have for an access need right now. I am experiencing some auditory and visual processing difficulties, but I think I'll be all right for now. So was that everything I was supposed to say?
Perfect. Thank you, Megha Deepa. Thank you, panelists. We actually have an honorary panelist here with us tonight in spirit. Molly Adams, who uses she, they pronouns, is the founder of the Feminist Bird Club, and she is living with long COVID, and the constant fatigue has severely impacted their ability to go birding, to work, and even to tune into a Zoom for longer than 15 minutes. So actively participating in this panel was out of the question, but they asked me to read this in lieu of being here. She wrote to me, I would really like to encourage bird clubs and other organisations to remain especially adaptable for birders and other folks who develop long COVID and have other post-viral diseases such as ME/CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome. I'm unable to participate in this panel because of these new illnesses and recently needed to step down from my role as president of the Feminist Bird Club, and I'm on long-term disability from my advocacy and outreach role at New York City Audubon. I've stopped birding for the most part because walking and looking through my binoculars uses so much energy and the multitasking causes so much overstimulation. I hope to be able to encourage the facilitation of new types of birding through FBC events for folks who can't spend very much time in the field. So thank you, Molly. Thank you for sending that in, and thank you for your leadership and all the work you've done through the Feminist Bird Club, and for leading the way for so many of us, including me, and Birdability, and this work around inclusion and diversity and equity and access in birding. And we all wish you all the best in your ongoing recovery. Okay, so panelists, could you please share with us in 60 seconds or less something about your organization or initiative that's related to inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, and why it exists. I did stick all the links that I have in the chat already as you introduced yourself. But if you're in the chat or you know of another initiative, I know I missed the one that Monica was talking about to start with. But yeah, if you're in the audience too, please share of any other groups or initiatives you know that are doing this work too, so we can all find out more and support them. Panelists, please just jump in. I won't call on you by name except for Carrie if you haven't spoken yet. So yeah, please share 60 seconds or less about your organization or initiative.
Oh, this is Jerry. I have been involved with the Mass Audubon Society here in Massachusetts for several years in creating all persons trails. Some of them have rope guides, some of them have braille signage, most of them have audio tours that a person can listen to either while walking on the trail using a portable player or ahead of time on the web, which is my preference. And I've also done a lot of birding by ear workshops for people who are blind as well as the general public, and really enjoy doing those. And it's a way that I can promote birding, at least the aspect of birding that I'm able to participate in. Thank you.
I jump in.
Go ahead, Dexter.
All right, I can go. So I represent the BIPOC Birding Club of Wisconsin, and we're a community of people of color who just love the outdoors and birds and the beauty of natural Wisconsin. And we just wanted to connect other people who share our passion for birds and creating a more equitable outdoor experience in Wisconsin. So our field trips and events are open to all BIPOC birders. And all of our allies, all skill levels and interests. And it's all about learning about birds, their habitat, what makes them different and unique. And it's all happening within a community of bird lovers. So we take pride in our no judgment, fun, casual vibe and approach to birding. And it seems to be taking off.
So hi, I'm Monica Bryan, again with Urban Bird Collective. Our target population is BIPOC and the LGBT community in Twin Cities, Minnesota. We work with leaders who actually create safe space for people to be in the outdoors and have an interest in birding. I think why we started was, you can't always change sort of the mainstream birding community. And so we created our own system. And so we start with that premise of we know how to create safe space, but we also need the mainstream birding community to do better. And we will support people to do that. We're part of Audubon, St. Paul or Audubon, Minneapolis. We do a lot of things, but we have our sacred space. And it's for BIPOC and LGBT, but all are welcome.
Hi, I will jump in. I'm Leticia Soares again. I am involved in diversity and inclusion in my professional capacity as an academic. And I always say that as an ornithologist, all birders are ornithologists, but not all ornithologists are birders. And just like seeing birds and observing birds and appreciating birds is studying birds, right? So we need to add value to that, and that anyone can have access to that. Currently, I am involved with an organization led by youth of the Pataxó indigenous people in Brazil. It's called the Pataxó Indigenous Youth Association. And with them, I'm working in more of like an integrated capacity in trying to use birds as a sort of like stewards of nature, and start training youth to work as bird guides and do community monitoring and this type of work. So we're just beginning. It's been a year and a half, and there's much work to do. That's it.
I can jump in. Oh, Megadipa, you can go.
I'm speaking on behalf of the Anti-Racist Collective of Avid Birders. We began in June 2020, inspired totally by Black Birders Week, the Feminist Bird Club, and believe it or not, Birdability. So it feels like we're all coming full circle here, but we are a progressive and intergenerational, oh my God, birding group in here in Massachusetts, and we try to center and celebrate the experiences of birders that just aren't acknowledged or represented in traditional birding communities, specifically Black, Indigenous birders, LGBTQIA+, and birders with disabilities. We try to make space for birders who have never really even thought that they could be birders, and also for people who have been birding for decades. And I'm really grateful for the wisdom that I've received from people from all ends of that aisle. So yeah, I'm trying to create a safer and more accessible space for everybody, and really appreciate the space to share about that. Thank you.
So I am part of Feminist Bird Club, and our mission is to, as well, create a safe space for BIPOC folks, LGBTQ folks, anyone who feels like uncomfortable birding in a traditional birding space. We're also very welcoming to new birders. We get a lot of new birders, so we try to make a really good point of leading our walks in a more community participatory way, where we're not necessarily just calling out what we're seeing, but trying to really help people understand how they can be IDing birds. So that is our main mission. However, we spend a lot of our time actually fundraising for different social justice organizations. So every year we release a patch, and we pick a social justice organization that is in need during that time, typically one that is maybe less well-known or less shared, because we want them to be able to get just as much funding as a larger group. And we really focus our efforts throughout the year on that. We have over 20 chapters across the world, and all of those chapters as well sometimes do local fundraising for local causes. And we really try to create that intersection between activism and environmental equity and inclusion. So this past year, we raised $10,000 for the Native Wellness Institute. And then from June through the end of the year, any extra money that we make from patch sales, we will donate to the National Network of Abortion Funds. And our new patch will be coming out likely around February of next year. And we still have not picked an organization, but we will, and we'll announce it. And that will be a huge part of the work that we do next year.
I guess I'll go next. So Philly Queer Birders started in March of this year, 2021, out of a very desperate want to create queer community, to meet other queer birders in a pandemic. And my focus has been on bringing in other people to share their experiences, particularly other queer people, and the group has really grown. And like Feminist Bird Club, I really like to put an emphasis on like a collective learning experience, because we do welcome, I would say, almost entirely new birders, people who have never picked up binoculars before. So to make that experience extremely accessible, through this journey of like creating and growing this group, I've also like put a big emphasis on accessibility for people with disabilities. So Birdability has been extremely useful for that. And I'm also extremely lucky to have two other like-minded and wonderful birding groups in Philly. One of them is Feminist Bird Club Philly. The other one is In Color Birding Club. And Jason has been a really amazing resource there. So yeah.
Awesome. Karina and Kerry, we haven't heard from either of you. If you've got anything to jump in and share, please go for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Again, it's wonderful to be here. Similar to what Leticia was saying about her work, as part of my job at Georgia Audubon here in Atlanta, Georgia, making the resources that have been accumulated by white-dominated organizations that have historically focused on white, socioeconomically secure populations, making those resources available to the communities across Atlanta, across the state of Georgia, in ways that are relevant for them. What I've learned is that even though I'm a Black person from Philadelphia represent, I don't know what the experience is of people who are Black people in other places, right? So as a new person in this space, what are the ways that you already enjoy birds? And one thing that I've heard a lot is that we love our birds, right? We love our wildlife, but we're not considered to be doing it in what is named the traditional way. And the fact that we even call it traditional can in many ways be problematic. But people love their birds, even if they've never touched binoculars before. And so being very strategic and intentional about how can we make the resources that have been accumulated in this space available to people in the ways that they want to engage with them. And the other kind of element that I'm very grateful for Birdability for is that as a Birdability captain and as someone who is benefiting from the resources that Freya and the others in the organization have made available, being able to plan and lead and equip our leaders that we already have at Georgia Audubon with the tools they need to be able to lead trips that are accessible to people who have disabilities or have experienced access challenges in the outdoors. And so that's a little bit of what I try to focus on as part of my work. And I'm so grateful for Birdability's resources. So Freya, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you, Karina. Carrie, would you like to jump in there?
Sure. So I've been spending a lot of my time working with Birdability, volunteering for Birdability. I'm one of the Massachusetts captains. And I'm also, this isn't specifically birding related, but I am a commissioner on the town where I live, the LGBTQIA plus Rainbow Commission. And we do look at town policies and procedures, and we have a lot of open space in our town. So we do look at equity in the outdoors in that way, and the use and accessibility of open space. We also look at things like housing and the experience in schools and working with youth. So we do look holistically at inclusion and equity with a particular lens towards LGBTQ, but also we liaise with our town's Disability Commission and also our Human Rights Commission. And I just wanted to say that I'm also a member of the Feminist Bird Club of Boston and of the anti-racist collective of avid birders in Massachusetts. I'm in the Boston area, so I'm not close enough to go to some of the birding outings in Western Massachusetts, but I hope to soon.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you for all the work that you do, whether it's paid or unpaid. This is so important, and I'm really grateful for you all to share about it so more people can learn and maybe get inspired to start their own local group or initiative, because I know from some of you, you thought, you know what, that was a good idea. I'm gonna do that myself, and I'm sure there are others out there who may want to do that as well. So I'm just watching the clock because we have so much to get through and limited time. So I'm going to ask you all to do a bit of a show of hands here, and I'll verbalize what we see so that anyone who's blind or has low vision doesn't miss out on that information. Just to kind of summarize which groups of folks might be being represented on this panel today. So how many folks here, or do you go birding frequently with someone who is Black, Indigenous, or a person of color? Could you raise your hands for me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, panelists, if you could put your physical hand up, that will help me easily see you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. 8. Cool. How many folks here or someone that you frequently go birding with is part of the LGBTQIA plus community? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Awesome. How many folks or someone you go birding with frequently has a disability or another health concern? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow, really cool. Okay, and of that group, just to break it up, there's so many different kinds of disability, and I could talk about this all day. Some are visible and some are not. So, and by the way, I'm including mental health, mental illnesses or mental health challenges that you might have in the invisible disability category. So whether you identify with that is up to you for sure, but I'm including that. So how many of you guys have a physical disability? 1, 2, 3. 3. Thank you. And how many have an invisible disability to include mental health challenges? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half. Maybe. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So that brings us, by the way, I should mention, we have Becca in the chat on Zoom and we have Liz in the chat on the National Audubon Facebook page. They're sharing the links that I can't get to and helping out with that. So if you see those folks commenting, thank you, Becca, and thank you, Liz, for helping out with that. So, sorry, going back to that last question, lots of you have lots of different identities. So intersectionality is the acknowledgement that many folks share multiple, often marginalized identities, and these are interconnected and can all impact oppression in any setting, and particularly today, birding and the outdoors. If we want to be inclusive, we need to be addressing all of these identities. So panelists, what does intersectionality mean to you? And what can we as a birding community do better to address inclusion, diversity, equity, and access through an intersectional lens? And for bonus points, can you answer that question in 30 seconds or less? We won't be able to cover everything today. This is just such a big conversation, but yeah, intersectionality.
So Monica Bryan here. One, I'm just so intersectional. So I'm a Latinx, I'm a woman, GLBT. My whole adult career has been around intersectionality, working around social, racial, economic, and environmental justice issues. Those issues cross all sort of, intersectionalities. It's one that's always been important to me. And so to bring it to the Urban Bird Collective was just something that, we had to do. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many different intersectionalities, and again, I don't want to play oppression Olympics. And so how do we support each other and lift each other up to be more inclusive, I think is really important.
I'll jump in. I think intersectionality is I see as acknowledging the multiple ways that white supremacy affects all of us in different ways. And some of us, those ways they cross, and life just gets harder and harder because of that. And I think we should be all committed to deconstructing these values and putting different ones in place. Well, what is the second part of the question again? Apologies.
What can we do as a birding community to better address this through?
Oh, yes. I think it's very important to have the mindset of nothing about us without us. And that's something that comes a lot from disability activists. And I think it really applies to just everything, really. Just talk to people, listen to people, learn about the problems and put them in context. And I'm muting myself.
Oh, sorry.
I'm done.
One thing, okay. Zoom is difficult sometimes. No, one thing that I would say is that when it comes to intersectionality, about like what it looks like to approach equity in the space of birding, is that it's so important to know whole people, right? I think that I've seen a lot of examples of individuals or institutions drawing particular people into a space because of a particular identity that they can perceive about a person to kind of represent everyone who is like what they are perceiving, right? So a Black person or a person in the LGBTQIA community, as opposed to instead getting proximate, getting close to that person and knowing the wholeness of that person. And that's the only real way that we can, as individuals, understand how intersectionality manifests in an individual person's life, but even across communities. And so really rooting our efforts in relationship building and knowing people and knowing places is so critical for having an intersectional approach that benefits all people.
Birding
I'm
is
just
for
gonna-
everyone. Birding is for everyone. I think one thing that I learned, especially during Black Birders Week, there were the first year, right? Shout out to Karina. The first year, we're like, okay, there's some organizations that weren't represented, right? They weren't celebrating it. They weren't really, they didn't have any events around it. But then all of a sudden, the second year, you started noticing that organizations in the mainstream were actually trying to make an effort to organize around Black Birders Week. To me, that shows something. That's that effort that Karina's talking about, is about, hold on, let's try to figure this out, because I think a lot of times people are confused why there was a Black Birders Week. It's not because Black birders are different or anything like that. It's because our experience is different. And just because our experience is different doesn't mean that you're like a bad person or anything. It's just like, hey, let's shine a light on all these beautiful people that don't look like me, whose experience, right? My experience in the wood is going to be probably different than other people. And I think that's the thing that we got to realize. But the common thread is birding is for everyone. The common thread is that we're all human beings. The common thread is that birds are amazing. That's what brings us together. But the experiences will be different. And I think that the more that we're allowing ourselves to see that and to process those things and making an effort to understand those differences for people, it's only better for the community. And I know Jeff and I, we actually started the BIPOC Birding Club on Juneteenth. We're out, we're seeing all these amazing birds together, and him and I looked at each other. We're like, bro, we got to share this with more people. We have to share this experience. We need to bring in people that have the same values as us. So our allies have been huge. The local chapter of the Feminist Bird Club of Madison, like, oh my God, like soon as we started, they were supporting us and things like that. So just I was seeing the intersectionality there, because I'm seeing their plight and what they're doing and how they're serving their birders on their walks and stuff. And it's been an amazing learning opportunity, and we're making friends, right? Like, and I think that's the big part about it, is like, we're making friends. We're learning about the people, as Karina said. It's like, wow, these are some amazing people that want to make the birding community better. And I think the more that we can support each other like that, the better.
Thanks, Dexter. That was really great to hear it. I have 2 points on the creating space piece. The first is in Philly, for example, when I moved here, Elise had already started Philly Queer Birders. And I reached out to her right when I moved here and found it, saying, hey, I want to create this Feminist Bird Club chapter eventually, but I don't want to take away from what you're doing. So is there a way we can work together to create that space, basically? So one of the first things we discussed was maybe not scheduling walks on the same days and staying in touch so that we're not accidentally, doing something at the same time that could either take away from our own groups, but then it creates less access for people otherwise. So our whole goal with Philly Queer Birders, Feminist Bird Club Philly, and In Color Birding as well, we've discussed trying to have like every day you can go birding with one of our groups so that there's just always that space. So that's one thing I would say. If there's groups in your area who are doing similar work, just get connected and see how you can work together. And on the same token, our 3 clubs did a little sit last weekend, and it was so amazing. I was so happy. It just went so well, and it was so cool to see all the people from our different clubs come together who told us, hey, I didn't know your club existed, and now I do, and I'm going to keep an eye out. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing quickly is that a lot of people do have intersecting identities, and if you are an organizer or someone trying to learn, I would just say listen. I know that seems so simple, but I have been in situations at jobs and in college where I was siloed into one category, and I just felt like I didn't fit into that one category. And no matter what I said, the person who was in charge was always like, I understand who you are. Like, I understand where you fit. And it's, I have to just keep explaining, no, because I have these intersecting identities, I actually don't like feel the way that you feel. So that's one thing that I would say is super important, is to just listen. Don't try to explain how your identity intersects with my identity. Just listen.
Oh, this is Jerry. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, this is Jerry. And I sometimes feel that people have difficulty understanding why a person who is blind would be involved in birding, because for some people, not all birders, but for some, birding is pretty visual. And I'm reminded every time I go birding with somebody of just what I miss by not being able to see the birds. But it's important to me to remember that I don't really focus on what I can't do or what abilities I don't have. I focus on the ones that I do have. And I absolutely love hearing the sound of a wood thrush or a cardinal or lots of different birds. I love the smell of the woods. I love the feel of the air. I probably get a lot more out of birding than most people who are sighted think I do. So I promote a situation where I'm not judged, because you really can't put yourself in my shoes and feel what I feel. I'll never forget hearing 2 great horned owls one morning on a freezing cold January morning. And it just buoyed me up for the rest of the day. And maybe somebody else would have heard it and said, oh, that sounds funny. I wonder what that is. But I knew what it was, and I was a happy guy. Thank you.
I'll just jump in here.
Oh, please, yes.
Just trying to add on to everything else that's being said that's really resonating with me. Something that I heard is the idea of like proximity to round birders, and not like putting them in categories that you're looking at from afar. And I think a lot of the time I keep hearing people saying that, well, we want you to come bird with us, or, like, here's a pair of binoculars, just go out there. And sometimes I struggle with that, because the outdoors inherently I experience them very differently from a lot of other birders I know, and I experience it very differently from what Black people in this country do. Or, someone who's not as short as I am, or just like, just sitting down and thinking about my privileges in that. And also, like, unless I spell it out, people can't tell that I'm an immigrant because of my accent. So things like that, when I think about, and I realize that it's really irresponsible to be putting people outside without acknowledging the kinds of risks that some of us take. And on the other hand, like, what about birding energizes all of us and makes us feel like those risks are worth taking? And sometimes when you're just like picking somebody and being like, oh, now we have a person this color in the room, like, are you asking that person whether they're feeling safe outside? Are you asking them whether they're feeling welcome in that room in that moment? Or like, do you even like, do you know if they want to be holding a pair of binoculars and like picking out chip notes of warblers? Is that how they want to be enjoying birds? You know, like honestly, like one of my favorite walks that I've been on was just a bunch of people where some of them had never been birding before. Some of them were just like, I remember a couple of people were just going around hugging trees. I was having a hard time with my vision that day, so I was honestly just like listening to birds. And a couple of people were trying to use binoculars, but realized that like it was stressing them out. And so like there were a lot of like bigger birds around, like cardinals and rose-breasted grosbeaks, Baltimore orioles, and those were more fun. And they really didn't care what the ID was. And we all had such a great time, even though we were enjoying the outdoors in such different ways. And like, I will say this, like I'm a lister. I love like having my yard list and county list and all of that. But I've really learned things from people that don't bird the way that I do, and that have helped me enjoy birding on days where certain things might not be accessible to me. And so yeah, that's just my thought. Like I get so stuck up on the word diversity that I don't think we're thinking of the whole picture. So thank you.
Thanks everybody. I know not everyone might have an answer to all these questions, so that's totally okay too. So if you want to speak, please jump in, and I'll make sure, Carrie, if you want to add something right now, please go for it if you'd like.
Sure. This might be a little bit out of the scope of our discussion on intersectionality, or maybe it isn't actually, but one of the things that I'll take a step back actually. Just in hearing everybody, we all have very different experiences, and I think part of intersectionality is that we do, some of us have multiple overlapping identities and will have vastly different experiences. So, you know, for someone like me, my disability is invisible. At least visually. You know, if someone looks at me, they're not going to know that I'm autistic or have a disability. But if I'm trying to communicate or in a social context, then people are going to pick out that something's off. And if I'm not proactive and disclose that I'm autistic, people make all sorts of judgments. And so I think puts me in a different position from other people, and I'm really, it's important that we talk about these things and how we can all show up as authentic people and really be ourselves without fear of being judged. So when I disclose, it's usually because I anticipate that someone will be concerned if I'm speaking slowly or I'm not catching on, or sometimes, frankly, when I interrupt. I've been in situations where I've been, eager about something and I've interrupted someone, not maliciously, but it can be, really awkward. So I think just approaching everyone with a level of understanding that, we don't know, unless we're, talking about it openly, we don't know what other people are going through. And so I think it's really important to approach people with an open mind and not make assumptions.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I definitely heard themes there about knowing a person and a whole person, and getting to know them and their story and their experiences, and listening, and having an open mind. I think that's really important. If we're trying to learn, I don't know who said this quote, I need to find out. Someone said, do the best that you can, and then when you learn better, do better. if anyone knows who said that, please share. Maya Angelou, thank you. Someone just added that in the chat. I thought it might have been her. It's an amazing thing. And if anyone's listening, and you're learning things today that maybe you didn't do before, or you hadn't considered before. I know this has happened to me recently. Don't get into the shame thing. Shame, we're not into shame here. Shame isn't productive and it doesn't help us move forward. So just now you know something better. So apply it if you can, please. Elise, sorry, I know we didn't hear from you. No worries if you didn't want to add anything to that last question, but if you did, I just want to make sure that you had a chance.
Sure, thank you. I think everybody has said a lot of really wonderful things. As a queer person, I still think that I bring a lot of privilege as a white person, as a physically able-bodied person. So I don't want to speak too much on that. But in terms of making birding more accessible for people, it's been deeply, deeply important for me to meet other queer birders who have a lot of experience, who are somewhat seen as like leaders in our Philly birding community, and having them reach out to me has been really welcoming. When Carla reached out to me, some of our wildlife refuges and parks have reached out. And I think that part of creating a queer space is having queer people in leadership positions, and creating that space, because it's one thing to say like we are welcoming to all, but it's another thing, to say this is a safe space, but it's another thing to like do the work to create that. And so I'm appreciative of those who have reached out, and encourage anyone who's looking to create a space that's inclusive of birders who are not typically represented, to make those connections.
Thank you, everyone. I'm watching the time again. Gosh, I wish I could talk to you all for the next 5 hours, because then we might get close to covering a quarter of this topic. So speaking of feeling welcome and included in spaces, I was wondering if we'll try and do this in with 1 or 2 sentences, if you can. Throw out an idea that another birder out on an organized group outing, or if you're just randomly passing someone by out in the woods, another birder or a bird outing leader can do. What can someone do to help you feel more welcome and included as a birder?
Smile. You walking, you're on the trail, you're out, smile. It's something I always say to people. You might not even know them. And I'll be like, happy birding, and it lights them up. So that's what I would say.
One of my best bird walk memories is on a morning where I'd just gotten out of a surgical procedure. And I think I maybe mentioned to a friend, hey, could you maybe bring a folding chair along? And I know that other people remember the morning warblers from that morning and how close-up looks we got to them, but I remember that I didn't have to ask anybody, but that entire mile of the trail in and then another mile out, people just took turns carrying that chair that I just vaguely mentioned that I might need. And it turned out that another friend who was at the outing was struggling with kidney stones. And so we just took turns sitting down every few feet. And it was just I wasn't thinking about the pain. I was just filled with so much gratitude, and it just happened. And that's what made me feel like I am really around my people. So I appreciated that day.
I would say no matter what, always start from the beginning. Make sure people know how to use their binoculars. Ask them if they know about birds. Always start from there, because you never know who might be new, and it will only take a few seconds if everyone already does know what they're doing to just ask from the get-go.
On that
One thing that go ahead.
On that same note, as Carla, I think it's important to point out the birds you see frequently. even if they're robins, even if they're catbirds. You know, some people have never seen them before. It's still a joy to see a cardinal. And I think also not, you know, I don't consider myself an expert. Some people who come on my walks are definitely more experienced than me. And so I think if someone mis-IDs a bird, you know, like, that's okay. It's not that serious. And all flycatchers look the same, so.
Yeah, we have one rule at our bird box, and that is if you see a bird, point it out, and that applies to like beginners and experts. And you don't need to like ID the bird, but just like point it out. And I think everybody appreciates feeling like their contribution is important too in that moment. So I love that.
One thing that I found helpful is if you ask before you start kind of imposing the way you enjoy birds on the group, asking people before you start anything how they either enjoy or interact with or notice birds where they are. I think that's very helpful, especially with beginner birders, because when they come in and their first interaction with how you're supposed to bird or enjoy birds is knowing exactly the species or being able to see it or being able to hear it or pick it out. Can be alienating. And I've experienced that and I've witnessed that for other people. So starting off with having people share and engage with how they already experience birds where they are.
Yeah, for us, it's you know, starting and creating that safe space to say, here, this is who we are, and we're here to create that safe space, and that we're here to learn together, where we bring knowledge, but so do you. And to the point of you're here to help point out the birds, and then we'll help identify them. And if we don't know, we'll learn together. We'll open up that book or open up that app and figure it out together. So I think one of the things that we don't call ourselves expert birders, but we call ourselves pretty good at holding safe space.
I think I would say that not everyone likes interactions on trails. I want to do sometimes. I do like going out with people in groups, but I also adore being out there on my own and having my own time with birds, my own like meditation, introspective time. My partner is autistic and he does not enjoy being approached. So when it's the two of us, you know, it's good to have space. And I think some people enjoy nature differently and people enjoy birds differently. And maybe you're out there birding in a group and you see someone birding as well. It doesn't mean that that person wants to interact. Maybe that person just wants to do their thing, you know? So yeah, a smile, and I think respect others' space too.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so in order to try and catch this as quickly as possible with the time we have, I know I'm a bit strung out on time here, but we're going to do another show of hands. If you don't want to share this, feel free to just not put your hand up. No worries at all. So have any of these experiences happened to you? And yeah, please your physical hand rather than your emoji Zoom hand so that it makes it easier for me. Have any of these experiences happened to you? Someone assumed you didn't know something about birds and that felt like it was because you were different to them. Everyone has put their hand up. Okay. Someone talked over you or talked to someone you were with instead of talking to you directly in a birding setting. Everyone but one. Okay. Someone assumed you weren't correct when you identified a bird. Everyone but one. Yep. You know, my husband's in the army, and in the army they talk about trust but verify. And that's a really easy attitude adjustment to that, like, oh, you couldn't possibly be seeing that bird here right now. Like, you can just assume that they're right and go and check. It's really easy to just trust but verify. Okay, someone who made a big deal about you being there, which was probably supposed to be welcoming, but actually made you feel really awkward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hands. Yep. Okay. Someone asked you immediately when they met you, where are you from? Or how long have you been birding? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. I know I'm originally from Australia. Sometimes it's nice to talk about Australia. Sometimes I'd rather not be the Australian. I'd rather just be birding. And how long have you been birding is just such an inaccurate way to assess someone's birding skills, and it's really kind of irrelevant. So yeah, I reckon those questions, I think people are trying to be friendly, but there's other ways to sort of get to know someone straight off the bat that can be a little bit more welcoming, I think.
Just adding to that, I've technically been birding for 15 years, but I couldn't afford binoculars for the first 12. So I was birding in a very different way.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Okay. So, we've covered a lot of my questions, which is really awesome. I'm just checking. Okay, let's jump into organizations. Organizations might be local groups, they might be big organizations. What recommendations do you have for ways that organizations can be better allies and help BIPOC, LGBTQIA+ and disabled folks feel welcome and included in the work that they do?
So I'll say for the Urban Bird Collective, right from the get-go, we got a grant, and in the grant we said that we're going to do things differently. We're going to create our own system. We're going to create our own space. And to some folks that could be challenging, and to say, well, why wouldn't you want to be a part of the mainstream, birding community? And so they trusted that this is what we said we needed. And the other thing I would say, right after that, we work with the National Refuge is in Minnesota. So the Minnesota River Valley National Refuge and Sherburne National Refuge. And they wanted to partner with us. And we said, we love your area. We go birding there all the time. But if we want to bring more people in and to bring people to these spaces, we have to do it our way. And our way is to hold that space for the targeted community, so BIPOC and LGBT folks. And so one of the things that we try to do is to say to white folks, give us this space. We need this to come out. And there will be other times when you all are welcome, but sometimes we just need our own space. And the refuges there have been awesome. We have amazing partnerships. We have a gathering that, again, just our targeted populations, get us there, and then we can open it up. So just trusting that we know how to do it, and give us resources. I think that's the other thing.
Piggybacking off of what Monica just shared, I think that oftentimes organizations that are predominantly white want to draw non-white demographics into their space. And I'm sure that could be true for any other kinds of identities, as opposed to saying, here are our resources, what is the best way for you to use them, and letting them make those decisions. And I think in order to even know what that is and how to do that, you have to be proximate. And I'll keep using that phrase, you have to be in close proximity, where you are building relationship, you are building trust. And that is like very literal, meaning you take you and yourself and you go and you approach someone, you go to their space, you go to where they are, and you listen and you learn. And then at that point, you are informed on how you can make the resources that you have available to them, and not make your end goal having them show up into your, what is for sometimes decades been an all white space, or an all able-bodied space, or an all cisgender, whatever that space might have been, that homogeneous space. Don't let your end goal, don't let your definition of success be they're now in your space. Rather, the resources that you have accumulated through what is oftentimes inequitable means, you are now releasing and redistributing to those communities.
I completely agree with what both Karina and Monica have said. I think one thing I would add is that if you're an organization reaching out to a different organization like one of ours, and you want to help, to think about your language, not necessarily come at it being like, I have this thing that you could use. because to me, it seems like you need it. I have had that experience with people messaging me being like, if you ever want me to like lead a walk for you, I have like a lot of experience and I know where you can see stuff. And I find that very frustrating because I'm not necessarily out there to go and find like every single bird on the planet. I just want to go outside. And that's from an individual perspective, but I think that applies as well to organizations to really think about like, what is it that you are offering or that you do want? And how can you word it in a way or offer it in a way that feels good to the other person, doesn't feel like you are saying that you are better at something or have more resources, but instead that you want to amplify our voices, or amplify our work. I think that's the best approach.
Yeah, resources. I think resources and autonomy. And your end goal cannot be to get this group to conform. That's one thing Jeff and I, when we started, I was like, bro, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it our way. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be the Wisco birder. I'm going to do it my way. Right. And if they're cool with it and they want to partner with us while we're doing it our way, amen, come on in, because that's an ally. You know, like Carla said, amplify what we're trying to do, put resources behind what we're trying to do, and you come and jump on our train and watch how we bird and watch how we do our thing. That should be the goal. The goal should not to be us coming to you. It should be you coming to us. And I think if you do that, you're only going to win, because then we're going to feel like you support us and we're going to show up to your spaces too. So that would be the big one that I would say is, you know, give us those resources, amplify our voices, but don't expect conformity. Don't expect us to change the way that we do our thing.
Yeah, I want to follow. Oh, go ahead, Elise. Oh, me? Okay. I just want to follow up with all the resource conversations, because I think that's very important for organizations. For when you contact people, be ready to pay us. Like, it's very important. The work that a lot of us do is volunteer. And when you get in touch, just say how much you can pay or negotiate, but do involve some monetary compensation for the time of the people involved in these efforts. That's very, very important, and contributing with actual resources as well. But the other thing that I would like to add is that realities are different in different places and problems are different in different places. So learning the local needs of the communities that you would like to work with and you'd like to serve, and I'm specifically using this word serve because you're serving these communities, serving their needs. So you need to listen and really learn the issues. You can't go to a place and expect people to go to birding walks if they're hungry, right? So there are several problems that you need to think about, like, more holistically and put intersectionality into perspective and apply that.
I also think that I think that it's great when, you know, groups or organizations reach out. You know, they do it in a way where the language is good, and then once it happens, the space is not there to blend or to use your knowledge and to lead that, or to be a part of leading a walk or an event. And, you know, I've been in partnerships, you know, where I felt like so deeply intimidated that I haven't been able to make the space what I've wanted it to be. So making sure that if you are inviting, you know, any of these groups, to make sure that you also make space for them to lead it in the way that they want it to be led, and to uplift, and to, like, physically say, like, hey, is there anything you want to say or do, and making sure that that is front and center.
Thank you, everyone. So much really solid advice there. Carrie, is there anything else you would like to add to that question?
Yeah, I would like to say something about empowerment. I feel very strongly about this. one of the things I've noticed is that people associate autism with children. And there are plenty of programs out there, including birding programs that are designed for children with developmental disabilities or autism. And I'm not aware that any of these programs have consulted with any autistic people or hire autistic leaders. And I think empowerment's very important. I don't want someone leading for me. I want to be empowered to lead. I don't want, people who aren't autistic. They may be, family caregivers, medical professionals, and I think everyone means very well, but autistic people are, we're not just children. And so I think it's important to understand that it's a lifelong developmental disability, that you can assume competence, you can assume, that we can lead, we may need accommodations, but I think it's very important to get representation and input from actual autistic people if you're going to be leading outdoor activities or birding activities or groups in designed towards catering to the developmentally disabled. I think that's really important. And I think language is important too. The reason why many autistic adults identify as autistic and use identity first language is because the medical and professional community is so focused on curing us or making us seem normal, and it's problematic, right? Because we're not, we're perfectly valid as we are in how we communicate and how we see and perceive the world. What needs to change is the social environment and the social context and how people interact with us. So, I think it's perfectly valid if, someone is non-speaking. I don't think that verbal communication is like the pinnacle of communication. If someone can only write or someone uses AAC, it doesn't mean that they have nothing to say. It's just that people communicate in different ways.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to all of that, because I've been seeing this theme of like representation, and something which I end up hearing from a lot of traditional organizations is that, well, like we couldn't make it work. There weren't enough people who wanted the scholarship. This one was really hard to hear, but somebody had said to me that, don't you think urban youth have like other priorities than birding? Or something like that. And it was really hard. And I think it kind of ties back to what Leticia was saying about, don't make assumptions about what a community needs and what will serve their needs. And I was hearing about this this scholarship at Mass Audubon recently, where they had received a grant for a very specific underserved community for a person of color from there, like a child to attend like a summer camp. And that is an experience that like I never had growing up. A lot of other people don't have, and just they apparently weren't able to make that camp happen for this child because of a transportation issue. Because around here, like public transportation isn't that great, especially around our Mass Audubon sanctuaries. And so it can be really hard to access. And that had just not occurred to them as like a concern. And this is another place where I think like, if you don't understand the problem, then like go up to talk to somebody who understands it. Talk to like other organizations that are working directly in that community. They can figure it out for you. And I think like when you're thinking of representation, sometimes you have to take that extra step. Sometimes it's not as easy as like just like having somebody show up on like an ad for an outdoor gear. Sometimes you're having to go out of your way to specifically set aside money or resources for minorities that you would not need for people who are already accessing traditional communities. So that's what I have to add. And actually, like, also, like, offering free memberships. Like, I don't think people think about that, but I remember that, like, the ABA had reached out to me like a while ago, and they were like, hey, we're trying out this program to, like, let you know that we have these free memberships available. And I was like, sure, I'll take it. Because normally my idea of birding, it does not include being a part of your group. You know, so if you're trying to make me fit in and let me actually see that your community is inclusive, then, like, invite me in, show that you're creating the space. So, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, we've only got 10 minutes left, and I do want to get to some of the questions, but I also really want to ask another question, because there's a whole nother kind of birding community than the in-person kind of birding community, and that's the online birding community. I know a lot of folks with disabilities and other health concerns rely on online interaction with a lot of folks. I'm sure a lot of us, especially during the pandemic, appreciate the online birding community. I know I've only met 2 of the folks in this panel tonight in person. Everyone else I've met online. So the online birding community can be amazing, but like anything, it can also be unwelcoming. And I was wondering, really quickly, if anyone had some suggestions, whether that's folks interacting in Facebook groups. I know I'm part of a couple of Facebook groups that are so encouraging, they're so cheerful, they're so welcoming and inclusive, and I'm part of some Facebook groups that are kind of obnoxious. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, there's listservs, there's other like message services and stuff online. Any experiences you've had where something happened in an online birding community space that made you feel unwelcome or not included in that? But we've only got a couple minutes, so you have to be real quick in sharing your experience.
I will say, I won't name the group, but and this is sort of the, well, I should just name it, the Kestrels, feminist nonconforming, and I think it was around Black Birder Week, and you know, there was just some people who said some really stupid stuff. But the moderator, or one of the leaders, who was white and straight white woman in the group, like, shut it down and took them out. And so to me, that was just like, that didn't make me feel unsafe. That made me feel safer in the group, to know that they would not allow this. I think that was really important.
I find a lot of the online groups difficult to use, just because some of the social media platforms are difficult to use for a blind person, particularly Facebook. Well, I don't even try Instagram, but Facebook is not easy to use at all. So I do use it. I belong to a Massachusetts birders group, but I'm not active in it because it's just too difficult.
I would say it's not a competition, folks. It's like, literally, it's just birds. You know, I think some people in those groups just get a little ridiculous, where like they think they're competing with this person and that person and that. Like, I'm not even thinking about you. I'm trying to get my lifer. So you can just mind your business. You know what I mean? If you don't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. I'm still learning. I mean, I know when I first started jumping in Facebook groups, I was terrified. Because I'm like looking at all these like amazing photographers, and I'm just like fanning over their work. And I'm like, man, there's no way I'm on their level. So literally I lurked for like a year. I didn't say nothing. I didn't post nothing. I was afraid. And it's crazy, because fear keeps us from doing a lot of the things that we love, or a lot of the things that we care about. And sure enough, as soon as I just said, you know what? Just do it, right? Like I started posting my pictures, started asking questions. And what you realize is a lot of the times it's the fear in us that keeps us from enjoying some of these groups and some of these online situations. So I kind of had to get out my own way a little bit. And I started ignoring that little like minority of people that are annoying. They're gonna be there. But I started thinking about all the really good people there and the support and a lot of the friends that I've made online. And I mean, I don't know, man. It's changed my life in a way. I'm always learning and meeting new people and finding new spots to bird. So I say focus on the good and ignore the a-holes.
Yeah, I wanna say something. I think there was one time right after I developed long COVID, I got COVID-19 in April 2020. And after, developing it, just this multi-system disability and very complex disability that is long COVID, I was very thirsty for community and very thirsty for connecting with other disabled birders. And so I started reaching out, and I got just basically like contested on my own disability, like, are you really disabled? So I would say just we don't have to disclose our disability, it's really up to us to explain, if we just say we are disabled, you don't need to ask. Let us disclose if we are comfortable, right? And just believe people in general. Yeah, simple.
Thank you, everyone.
Just a great space for these
yes,
conversations.
okay, we've got like 2 minutes left.
Sorry. I've been really struggling with even posting about birdability events this week, because sometimes they just immediately get shut down or deleted. And I think I'm told by admins that they're trying to reduce traffic to those posts. But what I'm seeing from that is that they're prioritizing what needs to be at the top of the news feed. And that's not what shows in the comments. That's not what showed in terms of the number of people who like a post. And so that gatekeeping is something that I really struggle with. So don't assume. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. I'm sorry, we're just not going to get to hardly any of them tonight. I did just have a really quick scan of the questions that are in the Q&A box. Someone asked about bird walks and changing that term to be more inclusive. I'm pretty passionate about that, actually. Bird outing or bird event. In the chat, here's an article I wrote. I hate to self-promote, but just because we don't have time to go into that. So there's an article there about bird walks and bird watching, just as food for thought. Also in the chat, I saw a question about the transcript for the Zoom meeting. So this is recorded, will be up on the Birdability YouTube channel, and you'll be able to get it there. And I also saw a better alternative for well-meaning people asking, how long have you been birding? And in the interest of time, how about just, I'm glad
I
you're
have
here.
one for that, for how long you've been birding.
Recently, yes.
Start off by asking what bird everyone wants to see today, instead of asking how long have you been birding. Sometimes they just want to see a red-bellied woodpecker. Sometimes they just want to see a hawk, and that says a lot about them and why they're there today, without you having to put a label on their birding experience.
Yeah, totally. Or what those they want to hear, because maybe Jerry's in your outing, and he's much more interested in hearing than seeing any birds. We need to value birding by ear a lot more than many folks in the birding community do. It's a perfectly valid reason way to enjoy birds for anyone. Okay, a couple more links coming in the chat to you. Bystander intervention training from Hollaback. It's free. You can sign up for it at any time. If you see something racist or homophobic or ableist happening, the bystander intervention is trying to train you up on what you can do in that moment. So I recommend their training. It's really great. I'd like to, I'm really excited. We're actually just about to launch our Birdability website in Spanish. So the link is coming your way in the chat in a second. Please know it's really drafty. Wonderful work from Julio, Birdability Captain. By the way, I saw that question. There are volunteers, Birdability Captains. It's really drafty, so bear with us as we get all the right photos in the right places, and not all the pages have been translated yet, but it's coming. So that's coming in the chat. Another thing, Cornell Lab of Ornithology are giving away some year-long subscriptions to the Birds of the World database for folks participating in Birdability Week events. So you just have to share your name, email address, and your favorite bird, if you can choose one. And then also in the chat, thank you for being here. Birdability Week, we've got a few more events coming your way, including the Birdability Big Sit on Saturday. Kerry will be doing it with Jerry. They're both in the same place, really cool. I'll be participating, and there's a few other folks. So we'd love for you to sponsor us to see or hear as many birds as possible. All those funds raised will be supporting Birdability to provide honorariums for panelists and ASL interpreters, and those sorts of costs associated with Birdability Week. And it would be remiss of me if I didn't also give you the Birdability link to donate as a nonprofit. Donations are really important so we can keep our work up. So any donations really appreciated, especially if you learned something today. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much, panelists, for your wisdom, for your experiences, for your smiles. It's been really wonderful learning from you all tonight, and I look forward to learning from you all going forward. Please follow them all, check them out, support their groups if you can, and I really look forward to going birding with you all someday. Bye.
Good job, Freya. Excellent.